Hello, my name is Chris Reed, and today we are continuing our Reason 12 tutorials, and this is our intermediate level tutorial. Now, if you have not watched our first video, which is a beginner's guide to Reason, then you want to make sure to hop over and check out that video first before you continue with this video. In our first tutorial, we explain what it would be like to open Reason for the first time after a fresh install and to create a production. In that tutorial, we did not introduce any other instruments or devices. However, in this intermediate level tutorial, we will be introducing a MIDI keyboard and as well as an audio interface. An audio interface is a device used to bring audio into a computer as well as to bring audio out of a computer, where it can be monitored either through the headphone jack or through speakers that you connect to the audio interface. This is the Focusrite 2i2 audio interface. It will allow for two inputs in the front via these combo jacks, as well as a monitor output and a headphone input. And it also has phantom power that you can enable if your microphone or device requires phantom power. You can learn more about devices like this on our channel. Using an audio interface can help to take some of the load off your computer, as well as help with buffering when it comes to being able to play instruments live. You might want to use an audio interface in some of these cases. So to set up our audio interface, we're going to use the USB jack that is provided, and we're just going to connect that to the back of the audio interface. The other side of the USB is going to go into our computer. So now Reason has detected our audio interface, the Scarlett 2i2. So now we're going to select that audio interface, and now whatever instruments that we play, either bringing them into Reason via the audio interface or any instruments we play inside of the software, will now come out of the audio interface. Most headphones come in this standard size, but most audio interfaces take this size, which is 1/4 inch. You may need to grab a adapter, either a 1/4 inch or an 1/8 inch adapter, so that you can be able to plug into your audio interface. Now let's connect our MIDI controller. This is the Arturia Mini Lab Mark II. This MIDI keyboard has drum pads on the front, and it has encoders that will allow us to change the parameters on different devices inside of Reason. It also has pitch bend and modulation control, and of course it has the 25 keys. To connect our MIDI keyboard, we simply need to grab the USB-A, connect it to the back, then we will grab the other end of the USB and connect it to our computer. So as you can see, as I press the pads, the keys light up, and that's one indication that the keyboard is working correctly. As soon as you plug in your MIDI keyboard, Reason will recognize it as a MIDI keyboard, and you will be able to use your MIDI keyboard right away. But if you want, you can actually add the device into Reason so that you can unlock any capabilities that the MIDI keyboard might have. Simply go to Preferences, tab over to Control Surfaces, and simply click Auto Detect Surfaces. And Reason has detected that indeed we have the Arturia Mini Lab connected. Another way you can connect the MIDI keyboard is by clicking Add Manually, and then you can actually browse through the different manufacturers until you find your manufacturer, find the keyboard that you have, and then using this Find button, you can actually press a key on the keyboard and it will find the keyboard as it has been connected to the computer, and you can choose it, press OK, and now it has been installed. Reason has detected that this keyboard has been connected twice, so we're going to go ahead and delete one of them. Now let's add an instrument to our rack so that we can use our MIDI keyboard. I'll go ahead and add a Europa shape-shifting synthesizer. I'll choose a synth bass. So to find the synth bass, I need to go to Factory Sounds, Europa Patches, Bass, and now I have a bass that can be loaded into Europa. So now that we have our instrument, let's actually introduce something called automation. Automation is the process of manually changing a parameter, recording that change, and then allowing that change to be played back after we finished our recording. I'm gonna set up a remote override so that I can take advantage of the knobs on our Arturia Mini Lab. So I'll click on remote override and I'll choose our Arturia Mini Lab. And if I click this learn from control surface, I can actually twist these knobs and it will change which knob is being affected. So we'll go ahead and choose this knob here at the top and it will learn that control surface input. Let's do the same thing for our shape. So we'll right click, go to edit remote override mapping, learn from control surface. We'll move our control surface, then click OK. Let's actually go ahead and record that right now. So we'll switch over to our sequencer. Let's turn on our click, turn on pre-count, and then we will go ahead and start recording. And now let's check out that automation that was created. So as you can see, as I turned the knob, it increased this automation, and then I turned the knob down and it decreased the automation. So it changed. Now let's see what it looks like in the rack. It actually changed the parameter of the shape of this wave sound in order to change the sound via the automation. If we want to clean up that automation, we can actually go into the automation by double clicking on the clip, click and drag a point, and it will change the value and the timing of when the automation happens. So we can change it so that it happens sooner. We can change it so that it has a more gradual build and maybe a stronger build as well. So of course you will say, hey, well, Chris, it seems as though there should be a way that I can do automation even without a MIDI keyboard. And that's true, it's just not as fun. But if you want to automate another feature inside of the device, then you can simply right click and then click edit automation. You can actually record that automation using your mouse. So I'll show you that right now. And now you can see that that automation has been recorded. Or we can actually use our pencil tool, draw in a clip, and then we can simply use our pencil tool again to draw in points, and those points will actually represent the automation changes as well. So that was automation inside of Reason 12. I'm gonna add some different effects to this as we just go ahead and change around this beat. So Reason has a lot of different effects. We did cover some effects in our first video. We're gonna cover a few effects, but this is really a tutorial about all of the different things that Reason has to offer. And so with its instruments and effects, it's really up to you to do the discovering for the sound and taste that you like. But I want to provide you with information that can help you to get started in your music production. And so it's not really necessarily about going over every single instrument or every single effect, but I want to actually show you how you can get those things added to Reason's rack, how you can actually use the rack, and how you can actually create instruments and different sounds. I'm gonna add a compressor to the end of this chain so that the sound isn't going too loud. I wanna actually cut off some of this sound. So we're gonna bring down the attack and bring down the threshold. If we highlight all of these devices, right click and then click on Combine, we can create what is known as a combinator inside of Reason. A combinator is a utility inside of Reason which allows us to combine different instruments and effects in order to save them as a patch for later use. You can also customize your combinator with different knobs and settings in order to create the perfect patch for your production. With the combinator, we can actually create complex split instruments as well as layer instruments on top of each other. So now we have a combinator here with a couple different instruments as well as a reverb, but I'm not sure that the reverb is affecting all of the instruments or just one instrument. So if I want to figure that out, then what I need to do is actually flip my rack. So we're gonna press tab so we can see behind Reason's rack so we can see what's happening back there. This is what behind Reason's rack looks like. There's a bunch of devices. Here's a unit, kind of has a fan for the fan of the device so that the heat doesn't overheat the unit inside. And there's plugs here and cables and all of it, and it's just awesome. It's just awesome goodness. And when you flip the rack, the cables kind of move because that's what a real rack would do. If you was actually able to flip a rack, then the cables would move. And I just think that that's an awesome thing. It's one of the things that made me fall in love with Reason in the first place. We have all of these wirings connected, and if we want to understand what the wirings do, we need to actually see what's happening when we look at a device. If there's a lot of cables, then we can press K, and K will reduce the clutter of the cable, and it will show us the only cables that it will show us will be the cables that are currently highlighted that we are actually looking for. So for example, this mix unit, this mixer channel unit is selected, so it shows the cables highlighted that are connected to the device. If we click the device, it will show all of the cables that are connected in that chain. But it won't show us, for example, these other cables will be not highlighted because those cables are not connected to this specific device. So that's how we can understand cabling in Reason. So now we've disconnected our mixer channel from the output of our combinator. Here's the output of our combinator. Here's the input of our mixer channel. If we want to reconnect it, there's a couple different ways that we can do that. We actually can click and drag and simulate the plug going from one end to the other end. And as you do that, it will automatically plug in the other cable as well. But if you only wanted to plug in one cable, you can hold Shift while you're holding it and it will only plug in that one cable. If we ever make a mistake, we can simply press Control Z or Command Z and it will undo the change that we just made, as well as Control or Command Y will redo the change that we just made. So we want to keep our combinator connected to our mixer because that's how we get sound from the device instrument into the mixer and then out to our main output, which is what we are actually listening to. If you click on a device, you can actually change the order that it appears inside of the rack, including inside of combinators. And when you do that, the cables will follow and adjust accordingly. So now let's follow the chain of sound for this reverb. We'll go down to the reverb and we can see the output of the reverb is going back up to the main channel of this 5/6 mixer slot. And we actually want the reverb to infect the entire sound, the entire combinator. So we actually need to adjust this. So we're going to go ahead and disconnect the reverb, and we will actually show you a second way that we can connect it. We can right click here. Reason will give us all of the possible outputs and inputs that we can actually route this cable to. So for the reverb, what we want is for the entire sound of the combinator to flow through the reverb and then to come out of the reverb and then into our mixer channel. So we actually need to reroute what's happening here with our combinator. So we're going to take the output of the combinator and we're going to slot it into the input of the reverb. Then we're going to take the output of the reverb and slot that into the input of the mix channel. And now we can hear. Now we can hear the reverb is actually affecting the entire patch and not just the last instrument in the chain of the combinator. If you want to learn more about using Reason's Combinator specifically, make sure to check out the tutorials on our page so that you can learn more about using Reason's Combinator. Another powerful tool that Reason is known for is its sound design. We've been doing a little bit of sound design with our tutorials, but now let's actually get in depth with creating our own sound. And we're going to use that with one of Reason's instruments. Let's load up a subtractor so we can look and see some of the different elements that we can use for sound design, creating our own custom patches inside of Reason. There are some different elements inside of each of the Reason instruments that we need to be acquainted with in order to be able to understand and use them for our sound design. The first area is the patch loading area. That's where we can load a patch. When we want to do sound design, we want to make sure that our patch has been initialized or has been reset so that it is just an empty patch. Or of course, if we want to make tweaks and adjustments to other patches, we can do that as well. OSC1 stands for oscillator 1. The oscillator can actually have different waveforms. There are a number of waveforms that we can have for this subtractor. As we change the oscillator, we will get a different sound. And we can change the octave level here. This button here changes the phase mode, and we can actually automate that phase, or we can flip our rack around and we can connect another device that will automate that phase for us. We'll create a pulsar, hold shift pulsar LFO, and we will actually drag this oscillator phase over to our CV of LFO1. And as we change the parameters in the LFO, it will automatically change that for us. We can change the rate. We've created like a tremolo effect. If we want, we can actually change that to other parameters. It doesn't have to be, oh, that's cool. So we can actually move those cables around to different places and we can get different sounds. So just keep in mind the different kinds of plugs that you can actually use. Well, you can't actually use a CV control for the main outputs. You kind of got to think of it just like we was talking about with our headphones. You would need an adapter for that. And so audio goes with the audio and the effect changes go with the effect changes. So we've only used one oscillator. Let's turn on the other oscillator and let's change it to a triangle. And we'll turn it down. The amp envelope is another area that's very important. If we want to be able to play our song for a long time, we need to turn up the sustain. If we want it to be a very short sound, we would turn down our sustain and then affect our decay. Release affects how long the note stays on after we've released our note. So we've already actually affected this filter section. So let's leave it where it is. A high pass filter, low pass filter, a band filter, right? There's notch filters. There's different kinds of filters that you can use. Let's actually locate one of their effect patches. They have a nice bank of effect patches. We'll add in a dynamics, we'll add in a bass, and let's just add in nastier bass. We just want this to be a pretty nasty bass. And of course we can change the parameters. Of this bass patch as well. It has an equalizer, compressor, maximizer, and we can change the shape and the values in here as we see fit to make the sound softer or harder. It just depends on what we want to do. I think I would actually rather automate this. So let's actually create an automation. And we'll create our automation, and then we will draw in our automation here, and we'll just have it build as the course builds. Cool. Let's actually get rid of that first LFO. And now let's add in some drums. Let's go ahead and find some drums inside of Reason's Drum Factory Bank. We'll go ahead and record our drums now. So now that we have this like section of production here, let's actually go ahead and copy it over, and then we'll use one of Reason's tools to actually shift all of the notes either up or down. We'll see which one we like the best. Using the tool window, we can actually get access to a lot of great features inside of Reason, so we can affect the pitch of these MIDI notes, the velocity, note lengths, legato adjustments, the tempo. We can use alter notes, which is another great feature that we will be covering in our next video. And all of these different features, as well as the quantize, can be accessed through the tool window by pressing F8. So let's go ahead and pitch this section here down by an increment of 2, and it will adjust all of the MIDI notes down by 2. And we'll hear how that sounds. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video for our Reason 12 intermediate tutorial. It was all about creating new sounds, sound design, Combinator, flipping the rack, understanding how to plug in our USB interface and MIDI keyboard, and also automation. So I hope that you guys learned something new from this and that you can add this to your arsenal to creating music. I'm gonna go ahead and finish up this beat, but I hope to see you in our next video. In our Reason Experts, we will actually get into mixing, mastering, and just a whole lot other host of things. I'll see you guys on the next video.